This is Damien. He's an Irish network engineer working for Albino Chameleon, a company that sells solar panels based in Oslo, Norway. He manages a couple Palo Alto firewalls, and his company uses GlobalProtect for the employees' remote access. His boss, Ernesto, told him that he would like to migrate all the suppliers from Cisco AnyConnect to Palo Alto. But this time they want to create a scalable solution, providing only one URL for all the suppliers' VPN connections. Currently, his company has different profiles for users with multi-factor authentication with OTP, such as Google Authenticator. Others use certificates, older ones just username and password, and the list goes on. Damien is having a hard time figuring out how he can create different VPN profiles for the suppliers if they are supposed to connect through the same GlobalProtect portal. So in this video, we're going to help Damien to find a scalable and secure solution for his suppliers. So in our lab, we have a net router connected to the internet. It forwards all requests to vpn.albino.world to the Palo Alto Firewall on the IP address 172.16.0.101. In the inside zone, there are two Debian Linux servers running Apache. So Arthur from service provider A should be able to connect to the Debian A, but not to the Debian B. On the other hand, Bob, who belongs to the service provider B, should be able to reach the Debian B server, but not the Debian A. A Windows server running Active Directory will be responsible for the authentication of Arthur and Bob. So in order to help Damien with his problem, here's an Active Directory that I installed in my lab. And if we go to Tools, Users and Computers, I have the domain ad.albino.world, albino from Albino Chameleon. So I created two users, Arthur and Bob, two groups called Service Provider A and Service Provider B, and also a service account. I'm going to show you each one. Arthur has the user principal name Arthur at ad.albino.world, and he's a member of the service provider A, which is the group. Bob has the Bob at ad.albino.world as a UPN, and he's a member of service provider B. So just that we don't mix, Arthur starts with an A, service provider A, Bob starts with the B, service provider B. And also the service account. This service account has the account sa.-ldap at ad.albino.world. This account you're going to use to connect to the LDAP to make the LDAP requests. Okay, so now we're going to go jump back to the firewall. So now at Panorama, we're going to show Damien how he can configure the portal and the gateway from GlobalProtect to connect these service providers. For you who don't know, Panorama is the management appliance from Palo Alto. With Panorama, you can push similar configuration to several firewalls, more or less at the same time. I only have two firewalls in my lab, but I still have Panorama, so I usually use Panorama. And in this example, we're going to be configuring one firewall using it. So the first thing we need to do is to connect the file to the Active Directory. We're going to do this by going to Device, LDAP. Before I start, I have configured under Setup, Services, Service Route Configuration. I have configured my LDAP to make the requests not using the default management interface, but the Ethernet 1.2. This is my inside interface, but just so you know. So we go to under Server Profiles. If you go to LDAP and click on Add, you're going to add a new LDAP profile. LDAP profile, I'm just going to call it here under Server List. The name is going to be my Windows 2022. My server has the IP address 10.0.1.101. I'm going to be using normal LDAP, not LDAP-S or secure. So I'm going to keep the port 389. If you're in production, I would strongly recommend you to use LDAP secure. But since I'm on my lab, I'm just going to use normal LDAP. Type is going to be Active Directory. The base DN, this we can copy from the Active Directory. I'm going to go back to my Active Directory and show you how you can do it. So here my Active Directory, I'm going to open again Tools, Active Directory User and Computers. And here I'm going to First, I'm gonna go to View and be sure that my advanced features are selected. And then I find my service account user, double click on it, go to Attribute Editor, and look for distinguished name. Distinguished name, double click on top of it, and then I can copy this string. Okay, close this, and let me go back to my panorama. Now in panorama, I can paste my string that I copied on bind dn, and here on my bind dn, I'm gonna copy everything that comes after dc/ad. This is my domain, and paste here on my base dn. The password for my service account user, albino world exclamation point, albino world exclamation point, and I'm gonna uncheck this require SSL TLS, but again, if you're in production, you should leave this. And my profile, LDAP profile is ready. Just click on OK. So now we need to go to authentication profile. Click on add. I'm gonna write just like this, authentication profile LDAP. Under authentication, the type will be LDAP. Under server profile, I'm gonna choose my LDAP profile. Login attribute, we're going to be using the user principal name. We keep this here. Under advanced, we choose all, and then you click OK. So my authentication profile is done. Now under user identification, we need to add a new group map settings. So Daemon needs a new group map settings so that the users get matched to their corresponding Active Directory group. We need this information so that we can match the user to a GlobalProtect profile. So whenever Bob comes in, we can match, okay, Bob belongs to the Active Directory group service provider B, and Arthur to the service provider A, and they get matched to different GlobalProtect profiles. So we click on add. The name, albino group mapping. Server profile is going to be our LDAP profile. You don't need to worry about this. This gets automatically filled. And then under user and group attributes, since we're using the user principal name, we're going to switch this. Just copy this here, and the same account name. I'm going to place here name. So this group include list, if Damien is configuring his file with Panorama, he shouldn't worry about it. If Damien is making the configuration using the file, so it could make sense for him to use this group include list. I'm going to be showing you in the end of the video how he can take advantage if he's making the configuration on the firewall. So press OK. And let's commit once the configuration so that we can test on the CLI of the firewall if the connection to the LDAP is working. So the commit is through, but before we go to the CLI, Damien needs to be sure that the connection from the firewall to the LDAP server is being allowed. And for that, he would have to go to policies, choose the correct firewall. I already have a rule allowing LDAP, which is this one. It's allowing my inside interface. This is the one that I showed you before under services. That's where my LDAP requests are being sent from. And as my target network, I have my destination network. I have 10.0.1.0. My server has the IP address 10.0.1.101, and the application is LDAP. So this rule is going to allow my connection to my LDAP server. So now we're going to go to the CLI. So guys, just quick. The YouTube analytics show us that over 92% of the people who watch this channel are not subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed yet and you're getting some value from this video, please hit the subscribe button. It will help us a lot. Thank you very much. And let's go back to the video now. So on the CLI of the file, we're going to issue the following commands. We want to see if the file can see the AD groups already. So it's going to be show user group list. Enter. And these are the groups that the file is being able to synchronize with the Active Directory. You can already see here my service provider A, but I'm going to do pipe match So now we can see both AD groups, and we're going to check if the users are in these groups. So we're going to do show user group name, and we're going to copy this. And we're going to paste. And with this command, you can see which users are members of this group. I'm going to do the same for the other group. Service provider A. And you can see Arthur. So here on top, service provider B, you can see Bob. Service provider A, you can see Arthur. You can also do the opposite. You can ask the Active Directory, hey, show me the groups that this user is member of. This one is show user, user IDs, match user, Arthur at AD albino world. And this command also shows the nested groups, and the same we're going to do with Bob. You can see here the Arthur, service provider A, and some other groups, and Bob, service provider B, and the other groups. And we're going to do the same for SA LDAP at AD albino world. This service user is only a member of domain users and users. As you can see, this is enough for us to use this user as a service user to make LDAP queries. And you can see that it's working. If you make a change on an LDAP, usually it takes 1 whole hour for the file to synchronize. So in this case, if you want to synchronize now, you can issue the following command: debug user ID refresh group mapping. And you can either issue all. I'm going to use tab here, and you can see that the list, it shows the list of the group mappings that you have configured. But I'm just going to issue all. And it shows group mapping, albino group mapping is marked for refresh. Usually takes maybe less than 1 second or a couple seconds. Usually it's really fast, this synchronization. But usually whenever you make a change on the Active Directory, you want to enter this command so that it gets synchronized quickly. Okay, so LDAP is working. Our users are being synchronized. In this case, I would suggest Damien to leave this window open, because this string, the distinguished name from the group or from the groups, is going to be needed later on for the configuration of Panorama. And we're going to go back to Panorama now. So now we're back to Panorama, and I'd like to configure the targets for the service provider A and B. So I'm going to go to Objects, Add, Serve Provider A Server. This is going to be the target of the service provider A. Just going to leave it as shared. This is going to be the 10.01.201. Copy this. And I'm going to create another one for my service provider B server. Shared 10.01.202. I'm going to also configure the gateway network. This is going to be my source network. It means that when the users connect to the network, they're going to be getting an IP address from the network 10.110/24. I'm going to be using this later on the gateway GlobalProtect gateway configuration. Use it also as shared. Okay. After the objects are ready, we can go configure the network, and then later on we can go back to configure the policies. Let me check if I have the tunnel interfaces still. I already have. Okay. But I'm going to go through it so we can show you. I created a tunnel interface with the ID 1. Just make a comment of GlobalProtect. The virtual route is my default virtual router. My security rule, I created a new one just for the GlobalProtect user. And here on the IP address, you don't need anything. Here also, you don't need anything. What is important is this security zone. Okay. So after this interface is configured, under policies, we can now create the policies for the service providers. So we go to add, and we say allow service provider A. Under source, we enter the GP user, source address gateway, gateway network. And here under source user, I'm going to go back to my CLI and copy my CN. So here in my CLI, I can copy this. I'm going to go back to the panorama. Click on add. I'm going to paste the string here. Under destination, if you're at the firewall here, it would be, this is an advantage of configuring such a thing on the firewall. You can choose the group. You don't need to copy the whole distinguished name. Like I said, I'm going to show you in the end of the video. So destination, you can add destination zone is going to be my inside. My destination address is going to be the service provider A server. Application SSL, SSH, web browsing. I'm gonna allow these three. Application default is fine. Action, allow, I'll click on OK. I'm gonna take this rule and I'm gonna clone it. Enter after this one. Click on top of it. And then I'm gonna change service provider A to B. Under source, they are all coming from the same network source address, so I don't need to change this. Under source user, the group, I need to change to group B. Destination is gonna be my service provider B. And here is everything the same. You can click OK. So now we have two rules. One for the service provider A, in this case the Arthur. He's going to be allowed to access the server under this IP address, 201. And the same for Bob. He's going to be able to access the 202. And we're going to create a new rule called deny service providers, because I only want them to be able to access these servers. So I'm going to create here the rule called deny service providers, like this. Source, I'm going to leave this. This one I don't need. Destination is going to be any. And here I'm going to leave also any. Application, any. And here I'm going to choose also any. And action is going to be deny. So let's take a look what it looks like. So I have deny service provider. Everything that comes from this network and this zone, anywhere, I'm gonna set to a deny. Of course, this rule is important that this rule comes after these two. I already have this rule configured. This is an allow GlobalProtect to my Palo Alto virtual machine. This rule is responsible for allowing the connection from the internet. It means that it comes from outside to my outside interface from my firewall, and I'm allowing these four applications. So you need for GlobalProtect IPsec, ESP, UDP, PanOS GlobalProtect. This is used for the gateway configuration, and SSL and web browsing, mostly for the portal. There are some environments that you don't really need this, depending on what you have in your default rules, because usually the connection from the internet comes from outside, and usually your outside interface is also in the same zone. So depending on what you have in your default rules configured as an intra-zone default, this would be allowed automatically. I have a deny because I don't want to allow automatically connection inside my zones. So I have to add this rule, but can be that in your case or in Damien's case, he doesn't need to add this rule that I just added, but I just wanted to mention. So now before we jump to the configuration of the portal and the gateway, I want to show Damien what I already have configured. If you go to device, certificates, I already have a certificate. It's an official certificate to vpn.albino.world. And I created a service profile. I'm gonna click on it. It's using the certificate vpn.albino.world. So let's go now to the portal configuration. You can go to network, portals, click on add. I'm going to add our portal. So it's going to be portal minus vpn.albino.world. Albino. Okay, interface is going to be my 11 IP address, the IP address from the interface. Under authentication, we select the one that we have for vpn.albino.world. Under client authentication, we're going to add LDAP client auth Authentication profile is going to be the one that we created before. And here we need a yes. So click on OK. Under agent, you're going to create a new agent. By the way, guys, if you need some help with GlobalProtect configuration, from the basic configuration, I have a video that I'm linking here on the top right corner of the video. You can check it later. At the end of the video, I'm going to post this link again. And you can also find a link to this video in the description, just if you need some help with it. So name, portal, portal agent, AD, not AD, VPN, albino.world. Client certificate none. Save user credentials, we can set to no. I want to create authentication override. 24 hours is fine for the portal. And here I have a certificate that I used before in other videos, netsums.cookie.cert. It's a self-signed certificate that I use for the encryption and decryption of the cookies. Just remember, you need to use the same certificate at the gateway configuration. Otherwise, every time the gateway connects, it's going to be asking for username and password again, because it won't be able to read the certificate that the portal has been generating. So config selection criteria, can leave at any here. Since we're at the portal level, I'm going to show you at the gateway, but at the portal, we don't need to differentiate if it's Arthur or Bob coming, because the configuration is going to be the same. Under external, click on add. I'm going to add the VPN albino.world. This is going to be the name of my gateway too, because I have a gateway and portals residing on the same firewall. So I just adding the FQDN for the gateway and the portal, they're going to be the same. Click on OK. Under app, we need to change the user logon as on demand. And since we're making a configuration for external service providers, they probably have other clients and have other Active Directory on their site. So I like to set the users use single sign-on to no. So this is what I would recommend Damien to configure as a portal. The configuration is through. Click on OK. It's going to be different on the gateway now. I'm going to show you because they have different requirements regarding the gateway. So under gateways, you click on add. And here I'm going to enter gateway, VPN, albino.world. Interface the same as the portal, like before address the same as the portal. Authentication the same as the portal. Unfortunately, we need to create everything again, but it's the same. Here is yes. Click OK. Under agent, we select the tunnel mode. Here we're going to choose our tunnel interface. It's going to be tunnel 1. Under GlobalProtect IPsec crypto, I would suggest you to use, we can create a new one here. I'm going to call new GlobalProtect IPsec crypto. IPsec crypto VPN albino.world. Here under encryption, I suggest Damien to select the highest one, which is nowadays currently is with my version is AES 256 GCM. If he sees that he's having some performance problems from the GlobalProtect client to the gateway, he can choose another one, but I have never seen any problem with this encryption. So it means that the GlobalProtect client on the computer from Bob and from Arthur are going to connect to the gateway using this kind of encryption. That's what it means, this IPsec crypto profile. So I'll just click on OK. That's the correct one. Under client settings, now here I need to configure one for each provider because of this option, split tunnel. They need different split tunnels. So I'm going to call this one here service provider A. Here on my source user, I need to enter the CN. Do I have it copied still? No, I don't have anymore. Let me just get it from the CLI. I'll be right back. Okay, just copy it from my SSH session to the file. We don't need anything else here. If you want to restrict the region that they are coming from, you can use this field here. Authentication override, we can configure this also. For the gateway, I like to set to 10 hours, just one day. The cookie, I have to choose the same one. IP pools, we are not going to configure now. This is important. In this agent configuration, we're going to make it globally. If you can see here outside, it has a client IP pool. And I'm going to do this because both my service providers are coming using the same network as the source network. So in my configuration is 10.1.1.0 that we selected for both service providers. If they are coming from different networks, which I also have for some clients, you should enter here in the IP pool, and here on the client IP pool on the globally, you should leave blank. Actually, you're not allowed to enter something here and outside. It's either here globally or here on the agent configuration. Now I'm going to leave this blank. But under split tunnel, I want to include here my service provider A server. Network services. We don't need any DNS server to pass to the service provider. Okay, I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to do a new one for the service provider B. So I click on add. Now it's going to be service provider B. Service provider B. Authentication override. I'll do the same. IP pool's the same, empty. And here, service provider B. And here also no DNS, okay? So now at the client IP pool, now I can enter the network 10.1.1.0/24. Forgot the dot here. Oh, not here. So both providers are going to come from an IP address from this source network. Network services. You can do it also globally to provide to all of your agents the same DNS or DNS server. We don't need this. This we don't need. We don't need. So press OK. So this was the gateway configuration. Now we can commit our configuration and test to see if the service providers are able to access their servers. So now I'm connected to a laptop in the internet, and I'm going to try the connection to the portal, to the GlobalProtect. So I'm going to go to GlobalProtect vpn-albino.world, click on connect, username arthur@ad-albino.world, albino world. So it's connecting now. So connected. If we take a look at the IP address, you're going to see that the computer got the IP address 10.1.1.1. And if we choose IP route print, you can see that it has a route to the host 10.0.1.201, which is the server that we're going to try to reach now. So if I open my browser and I enter 10.0.1.201, I get the Apache page, which is configuring the server for the service provider A. And if I try the same 10.0.1.202, it doesn't load. And if I try 10.0.1.201, port 8080, it also won't load, but at least this here we won't be able to see at the firewall because GlobalProtect is not sending through the tunnel because of split tunneling. But this we should see at the firewall. So if you take a look at the firewall now, we can see that the connection from Arthur comes from 10.1.1.1, coming from the zone GP user, going to the zone inside, and it's trying to reach the server 10.0.1.201 with the port 80 has been successful. With the port 8080 has not been successful anymore. And here on the right side we can see the rule that's matching allows serve provider A. And here on top you can see that it has a deny for service provider. So everything is working, and it's also recognizing the user as Arthur@ad albino world. Since it's matching the service provider A rule, it means that it's recognizing Arthur as being in the group service provider A, which we already saw on the firewall before. Now we're going to try to do the same with Bob. So now on the computer we're going to disconnect Arthur, and then we're going to connect Bob now. Bob@ad id.albino.world, albino world exclamation point. So it's connected. I need to clear the cache, settings, privacy and security, clear data, cookies and site data cache. Clear now. Then I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna close this and I'll open again. And I'm gonna try HTTP in the same order. 10.0.1.201. It's gonna be loading, but it's not gonna load. 10.0.1.202. This one works. And 10.0.1.202, port 8080. Also loads forever. This one you can see, connection has timed out, the 10.0.1.201. For this one, it's gonna happen the same. So now let's take a look at the firewall. I don't know which IP address the Bob has. Just gonna erase this. We didn't take a look, we should have done that. But it's okay, Bob has the 10.1.1.2, you can see here, as a source user, so just click on top of it, and then I'm gonna filter. So we can see the connections to Bob. 10.0.1.201, of course we don't see at the file. 10.0.1.202 for port 80 is working. The rule is allow service provider B. Everything else with port 8080 is being denied. The last thing I wanted to show you at the firewall is if you come to device and the user identification, the group mapping settings, if you click on this one and go to group include list, here, which is different from Panorama, you see the list of the AD groups, the Active Directory groups, and if you go through users, we can see the service provider A and service provider B, and you can click on this plus, and it gets included. I cannot press OK here because my configuration is being sent through Panorama. Either I need to use the override, but I just wanted to show you, when you do this and in the include groups, and you go to the policies, these groups, they get suggested to you. Click on add. I'll do this to show you. Device. I hope I can do it without a commit. Group include users. It was in the bottom, right? Yeah. Provider A, service provider B. And if I come to policies, I click on add, and I come to source. Here on the source user, I get the service provider A and B offered to me. Now I'm getting everything. Probably I need a commit, but at least I get the Active Directory groups being shown. You know what? I'll commit this configuration. Let's take a look. Now the commit is through. Let's take a look now if it's working. So add, source, and then under source users, there you go. You only see these two included groups that were included to choose. Of course, you can add more as we do on Panorama. CN equals, and then you enter the group, the distinguished name. But here, as a select groups, you have these two that are being shown. So guys, thank you very much for watching the video until the end. I hope you like this mix that we tried to make in this video, a little bit storytelling in the beginning. Let me know in the comments below what you thought. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It's gonna help you also get similar videos like these ones offered to you, and also it's gonna help us a lot with the YouTube algorithm. Hit the like button if you like this video. If you're having some problem or if you need some help configuring GlobalProtect, here's a video that can help you, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.